Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Naveen Nishchal. I welcome you all for today's session. Voice of Healthcare presents The Big Idea, voicing what's next in healthcare. The big idea is Voice of Healthcare's newest virtual mini interview series that features leaders and visionaries from all walks of healthcare space in a one-to-one discussion. This breezy, snackable 10-minute show is a quick, refreshing dip for those who want to stay updated on all newsworthy developments in healthcare. In this series, our eminent guests will empower you with expert insights on disruptions, practices, and trends that are worth exploring and worth sharing. And our guest today is Dr. Avinash Phadke, who has created a legacy with Dr. Avinash Phadke chain of labs in Western India. Welcome to the show, Dr. Phadke.
Hello, thank you for your kind words, Dr. Naveen. Looking forward to interacting with you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, I want to know about your entrepreneurship journey. Although I believe that every clinician is a micro entrepreneur, what made you to switch to an entrepreneur role? I mean, how a transition from a clinician to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I have done my post graduation in cancer pathology from Tata Memorial Hospital in 1980. And I was
Wonderful.
practicing pathologist, having a family practice till 2001 when I
Right.
formed a JV with Mr. Ajay Piramal. And it was called
Okay.
Piramal Diagnostic Dr. Phadke's Lab. The
Oh,
funding
wow.
was done by Mr. Ajay Piramal. So we
Okay.
expanded a lot and we started almost about 80 to 100 labs as well as radiology ventures during a journey from 2002 to 2010. In
Right.
2010, this was merged with, at that time, it was called Ranbaxy Labs. Today it is called
Okay.
SRL Labs. So
Right,
SRL
sir.
Labs and Piramal Labs were merged together to create
Okay.
what is SRL today. So instead of
Okay.
heading then Piramal Labs, I started heading SRL Labs. So in
Great.
a word, I would say that there are three things which journey has taught me, that from an individual proprietary concern to working in a large corporate in the form of Zevi and then subsequently heading it, you need three things. One,
Right.
that you should be willing to change in your mind. If you say that you are used to purchasing equipment and taking decisions on the spot, that doesn't happen anymore. You are finally accountable to few people, and you have to be
Agree.
learn to be patient to justify your decisions to somebody else apart from your own mind. That's the
Correct.
journey's lesson number one. Lesson
Correct.
number two, you learn that you are working in a very, I would say, as far as compliances go, you are following your income tax norms, but otherwise, you are in a loose compliance structure when you are a proprietary concern. When you become a
Hmm.
corporate, lot of things which you don't notice, such as
Yeah.
waste disposal, environmental issues, audit issues, internal audits and external audits. Then when you are doing a procurement, how to have a vendor list, the best selection of vendor, all these practices come into play. Now the problem is, if your practice size is very small, this additional compliance burden becomes too heavy for that organization. So I have seen
Yes.
individual practices, when they start following these norms, their EBITDA just drops down from 25% to 5 or 10%, because earlier these expenses were not accounted for. So
Correct. Correct.
you really need to have a minimum size to allow you to be compliant with various regulations. So that's
Correct.
why you need a chain of labs to create that size, which will be then compliant with all regulatory issues. That's the lesson number two. And lesson number 3, no individual has funding capacity to invest and wait. He is dependent on bank loan, and banks ask for personal securities and personal guarantees, and you can take one step at a time. But when you take
Right.
funding either from PE players or from large corporate, your funding requirements are with less strings attached, and then you are able to cut down your journey of expansion from decades into few years. I think that is what my personal experience
True.
has taught me.
True. I agree with you that with scale, you can follow compliances. You can get funding also. So with scale, everything gets into right place. So, Dr. Avinash, I also want to know that although all these learnings are your personal experiences, so when you were doing all these things, you must have also got some challenges in this journey. So, would you like to tell two or three challenges, or if you can spend a minute on this, that would be really great.
Yeah, one of the challenges which any corporate faces in today's time while expanding is when you choose doctor partners, it is like unless you may draft any agreement in India, but the legal process are long and tedious. You spend a lot of time in getting a legal redressal. So
Right.
your judgment of forming a chain with a particular doctor is very critical, because out of your 10 partner doctors, if 5 you feel are unethical or following not correct compliance practices, then you have issues on your hand. So you need
Right.
to really spend time in choosing correct partner. So that was
Yes.
the first lesson which you said. So because initially in the haste of expansion, you tend to do some partnership deal or some acquisition deals where you then later on realize that this doctor's reference check should have been done more thoroughly. So
Right.
that is learning number one. And it's very important to work with doctors who are like minded, who can follow regulatory practices, and who
Yeah.
want to expand. If a
Right.
doctor is looking at your joining chain or his joining chain as a retirement option or an
Uh-huh.
exit opportunity, then he's
Right.
not going to grow. So that was
Right.
the first challenge I faced, because couple of practices were just when they received funding and some personal money, they were happy doing nothing, because for
Right.
them that's the end of their career aspiration.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
shouldn't
Yeah.
be the case. The second lesson which we learned, and I think it is very important, is to get an accreditation in today's time is very, very critical. So where it is College of American Pathologists or our NABL, or in case of hospitals, NABH, all these accreditations are mandatory, because an individual doctor, even today in India, out of your 1 lakh labs, it's only 13 or 1400 labs who are NABL certified. And NABL, ours was one of the first 3 in the country to get NABL certification. So
Right.
the NABL came into practice in India in 2002, and we have obtained our first NABL certification in 2002 end. So
Wow.
we were one of the first 3, one amongst the first 3. But in private labs, we were the first one, because the other 2 were Dr. Lal Path Lab and SRL. In private practices, we were the first private practice to have accreditation. And the importance of accreditation you learn hard way, because when you want to do any business which is B2B, which is
Yeah.
not B2C,
Yeah.
B2B businesses, it is mandatory to have accreditation in place before anybody
Right.
can, tie up with you. I would say these were the 2 major challenges.
No, totally agree with you, and I agree with you that partnership is really very important, and partnership is just like a marriage. I mean, you should know your partner, who you are partnering with, and partner should also see the bigger picture you are seeing. So that is very critical, and quality quality is these days quality is really very important, and I'm really glad to know that you were the first mover who took NABL seriously and got your lab NABL accredited. So, Dr. Avinash, I mean, no discussion is complete, although we'll discuss more questions. But at this juncture, I would like to know uh, about COVID. I mean, how your lab helped Mumbai people and Maharashtra people during COVID, because Maharashtra state was one state which was affected more than other surrounding states. So, what do you think? How you could help
Yeah, so the
people?
biggest challenge in COVID times was, as you know, was to first of all you have to have molecular facility in place. So we had only one lab in Bombay which was having molecular facility. Uh, there were two labs in Bombay having molecular facility, one at Goregaon and one at Mahim. So we had to get
Right,
an NABL accreditation fast, and that was done through late night video checks and internal audits from NABL through video conferencing. The biggest challenge I was to face that you suddenly start getting 8 to 10,000 samples for COVID in a single day, and I am
right,
talking about one location. So Goregaon was getting 6 to 8,000, and our lab at Mahim was getting about 8 to 10,000 samples in a day. And we were
right.
supposed to do data entry at BMC website as well as at ICMR website. Each data entry would take 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah,
So
that
not
is
only
added.
your molecular structure had to be ramped up, your data entry operators, your courier boys, your night staff to do accessioning, everything needed ramping up. And that was only possible by appointment of contractual labor and training them. And I am happy
Right,
to say that SRL was one of the largest number of COVID tests in Maharashtra and Mumbai were performed by our lab during COVID times. And both our labs also, we created vaccination facilities, and both our labs are giving vaccination for people. Though you know vaccination is not a money earning business because you need to
yeah,
have
yeah,
3,000 square feet place, and
yeah,
there is no profit margin in it, and it has
yeah,
to be air conditioned. You have to appoint a
yeah,
medical officer, nursing
yeah,
staff, but we did it
yeah,
as a public service. So not
yeah.
only in testing we were leaders, we were also leaders, unlike other lab chains who are not giving vaccination. We are following and giving a chance for people to get vaccination at both our labs.
Great, great service. I think it's commendable. It's commendable. So, Dr. Avinash, you already said that there are more than 1 lakh labs in India, and majority of these labs are unorganized, and a lot of these labs are not uh, managed by a pathologist or quality people. These are untrained people or technician runs lab. So what do you think? Do you think what first of all what should be done to curb, because they are giving under quality reports. So what do you think? What should be done? And recently we got draft from National Medical Commission as well. So at
So
what level
I
and what should
fully agree with you, but the problem is not as easy as it sounds. The answer for any corporate lab or a listed chain would be to make a NABL accreditation mandatory. You know, that's the easiest thing. So everything should come to only NABL accredited lab, and nothing should go to non-accredited lab. They have to either get accreditation or merge or close down. Now, to me, that's too simplistic an answer, because if we do that, 80% of the country would be deprived of any access to diagnostic in a single stroke of law. And that is not something which we wish to do. You know, so what I feel that NABL has already started a mini entry level accreditation.
okay?
So it's not as stringent as what is applied to large lab, but it's an introductory accreditation, and it
Right.
has to evolve in slow phases. It cannot be a one day law passing in which you say that non-certified labs have to shut down. Now, there are Supreme Court judgments which make it mandatory that an MD pathologist should be an authorized signatory for this lab. And
Mhm.
by being an authorized signatory, I mean somebody has to supervise those reports. In practice, it is not followed.
Yeah.
The fault also lies that there is no availability of MD pathologists in interiors of the country.
Yeah.
So government is unable to pass these laws at one stroke because of these challenges. So to answer your question, it's a journey. It will happen over a period of time. But if you are expecting that in a day, just like demonetization, everything would change, it will not happen in one stroke of law in a single day.
I fully agree with you, Dr. Avinash. You rightly said that the reason behind this is, accessibility is a bigger problem than quality. So I fully agree with you that we can't, make these labs close down, and we can't, tell them to shut down the shop because they are doing something. I mean, we can, force them to adopt some quality practices with enable entry level like programs, and gradually we can, build qualities in these labs. I fully agree with you on this point. My next question. So these days, there are a lot of new players are coming up in the market, and there are some aggregators. There are some, labs, those who are taking blood samples from patients' home, and a lot of genomic labs are also coming up. So any view on that? Any suggestions or thoughts on that?
A very, very interesting question. Dr. Naveen, what happened during COVID times? There was a price cap on COVID tests. So that was not where the earning was, but because of COVID, lot of blood workup was done, especially in the first wave. Lot of blood workup was necessary. Tests like D-dimer, interleukin-6, C-reactive protein, serum ferritin, these were done in very large numbers. So suddenly all the labs started showing a significant growth in top line and bottom line.
Yeah,
This attracted a host of new players thinking that this is a gold mine. This is
yeah,
something which is fantastic, good growth, and compared to a hospital, a much better return on capital, as they say. But
right.
this was short-lived because when COVID went, the second and third wave patients started doing home COVID test. They were
Yeah,
not that ill that they warranted so many blood investigations as in the first wave. So the second and third wave didn't result in as much of not only COVID testing, but even the blood workups were minimal. So this
yeah,
resulted on a very large base of COVID times, the labs failed to show any significant organic growth. So you will see all the listed players, I don't want to take names, but all the listed lab chains showed a
hmm,
significant decline in their share
hmm,
prices and market caps,
correct,
almost
correct.
to the tune of 50%. And in the meanwhile, thinking that it's a very great opportunity, a lot of new players and aggregators entered this. So now you have a situation that we are no longer a 3 or 4 lab listed chain race. You are now having 15 to 20 major players, and they're targeting the same market, which is
Yeah,
15% of the total market, which is organized.
yeah,
And the shift and cannibalization of inorganic to organic will again, people expect it will happen in a day. It will happen.
yeah,
Earlier it was 10%, now we are at 15%. We'll go to 25%, but that's another 3 to 5 year journey. Till then, there is lot of competition and lot of, I would say, inability to raise prices And inelasticity of raising the prices because of competition has come to stay here in the short term, and I don't see it going away.
Very rightly said. Sir, last two questions. Advice for budding pathologists.
I would say blooding pathologist, if he is a histopathologist, which are at least about 5 to 10% of them, he should join an institutional practice, because in private, they don't have access to ISC, they don't have access to molecular platforms. So all they end up doing is to do frozen section with basic equipment, and just H&E work, and they outsource ISCs to a larger setup. So advice to histopathologists will be, you have chosen a line which is largely oncology based, and you need to be in a larger institute. For clinical pathologists, the scope lies today majorly in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. If you are
Right.
starting in tier 1, you will have to enter a group practice or work with a large corporate chain. So these are the two words of advice. And before you start your practice, an MD pathologist needs to spend time in a hospital, or some Dr. Lal or some SRL or Metropolis for few years to understand how private practice works before he
Right.
starts journey on his own. He cannot just
Right.
start a private lab of his own suddenly post MD. It
Yeah.
requires 3 to 4 years of spending time elsewhere.
So thank you very much for this, amazing, interesting discussion. And with that, we wrap up this really, really interesting episode with Dr. Avinash Phadke. I hope through this conversation, our viewers got some interesting insights into entrepreneurship in healthcare. Thank you so much, Dr. Avinash, for sparing time out of your busy schedule and being with us on this show. I thank all our viewers for staying with us till the end. For knowing more on what's next in healthcare, stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you. See you soon. Thank you very much, Dr. Avinash.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naveen, for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.